In 1979, the world was a different place. The disco beat was fading, but a new kind of rhythm was about to start in the life of a man named Richard Miller. Life for Richard had been quiet, a stillness that had settled in after his wife, Anna, passed away 2 years prior. At 34, he found himself alone in the house they once planned a family in, the silence mocking the dreams they had shared. Every evening, he'd sit at the kitchen table, the same old, peeling wallpaper staring back at him, as the clock's tick-tock seemed to jeer at his solitude. People told him to move on, to find a new wife, but Richard couldn't. He had a promise to keep. "Don't let the love die with me," Anna had whispered from her hospital bed, her voice as fragile as a falling leaf. "Let it find somewhere else to go." That promise, a fragile thread of hope, led him to Street Mary's orphanage on the edge of town one stormy night. His old truck broke down nearby, and had gone inside just to use the phone. But a muffled sound drew him deeper, a sound that pulled on a part of him he thought was long gone. It was the sound of a desperate, uneven chorus of babies crying, a symphony of sorrow that led him to a single room with cribs. Inside lay 9 little girls, all of them black, with wide, trusting brown eyes and tiny hands reaching for an unknown comfort. A young nurse saw the look on his face. "They were left on the church steps," she said softly, "just a few days ago. All 9 of them, wrapped in the same blanket." Richard was frozen. 9. He couldn't comprehend it. How could anyone abandon 9 lives? The nurse's voice dropped to a near whisper. "No one wants them. People come for 1, maybe 2, but not all of them. They'll be separated eventually." That word separated pierced him. He thought of Anna's last wish, her belief that love should grow and spread. He remembered her saying that family isn't blood, it's a choice. As he looked into the cribs, one of the babies, with tiny fists clenched tight, stared back with a startling intensity, as if she already knew him. Another reached out and touched his arm, and another smiled, a toothless grin that broke something open inside him. The hollow ache he had carried since Anna's death was replaced by something heavy, yet undeniably alive. Responsibility. "I'll take them," Richard said, his voice a tremor of a whisper. The paperwork was a brutal battle. Social workers called it reckless. Relatives called it foolish. Neighbors whispered behind their curtains, "What's a white man doing with 9 black babies?" Some muttered even darker things. People warned him about the money, the ridicule, the impossible life he was about to choose. But Richard didn't flinch. He sold his truck, his tools, even some of Anna's jewelry. He worked double shifts at the factory and took night jobs at a diner. Every dollar went toward formula, diapers, and the cribs he built with his own 2 hands. The house became a beautiful chaos of sleepless nights, bottles boiling on the stove, and clotheslines sagging under the weight of 9 sets of baby clothes. He taught his clumsy hands to braid hair, learned which lullaby soothed which baby, and learned to count their breaths in the dark, a constant fear keeping him awake. With each passing day, the rumors grew louder. Parents at the park pulled their kids away. Strangers stared in the grocery store. One man spat on the sidewalk and said, "You'll regret this." But Richard never did. He had moments of grace instead. The first time all 9 of them laughed at once, a sound so pure it shook the walls. The sight of them crawling after each other down the hallway like a living train. The silent weight of 9 little bodies snuggled against him during a storm-induced power outage. They were his, and he was theirs. He knew the world would never stop questioning him, never stop doubting his choice. But as he looked at the 9 little girls who had filled his once empty home, he knew one more thing with an unshakable certainty. He had given Anna's love somewhere to go. The years that followed were a trial unlike any other. Raising 1 child is a challenge, raising 9 alone was a war. His hands were always calloused from the extra shifts. His body ached from lifting, carrying, and chasing. But his heart grew stronger. Each girl had her own rhythm, her own spark. Sarah had the loudest laugh, while Ruth clung to him whenever strangers came near. Naomi and Esther were mischievous partners in crime, forever plotting to steal cookies from the counter. Leah was gentle, always the first to place a small hand on a sister's shoulder when fights broke out. Mary, quiet but fierce, was the first to learn to walk. Hannah, Rachel, and tiny Deborah were inseparable, their games a constant, boisterous hum in the house. To the outside world, they were the Miller Nine. Some said the name with awe, others with suspicion, but to Richard, they were simply his daughters. Still, the weight of judgment followed them. At the school playground, mothers whispered, "What's wrong with him? Why would a white man adopt 9 black girls?" Some accused him of using them for attention. Others questioned his motives, even his sanity. He never answered. He just kept showing up with their lunches packed, their hair braided, and the shoes he'd spent weeks working to afford. Money was always tight. He often skipped meals to make the groceries last and patched the same shirts until the fabric turned to threads. At night, with the house finally quiet, he'd sit at the kitchen table, the bills stacked like enemies, his head in his hands. And yet, he never let his daughters see the despair. When they looked at him, they saw strength, and that gave him strength in return. There were moments of grace, too, moments that bound them more tightly than blood. Birthdays with homemade cakes that collapsed in the middle. Christmas mornings when 9 pairs of hands tore open gifts wrapped in old newspaper. Nights spent under the stars, all of them crammed onto one blanket in the backyard, listening to Richard tell them stories about Anna, the mother they never knew, that who lived in every sacrifice he made. Slowly, against all odds, the girls grew up. They excelled in school. They held each other up when the world tried to tear them down, and they always came home to Richard. But time is a relentless force. By the late 1990s, Richard's hair was grey and his back was bent. The girls, now young women, started leaving for college, for jobs, from marriages. The house that had once echoed with shouts and laughter grew quiet again. The night the last daughter moved out, Richard sat alone on the sofa, staring at a framed photograph of all 9 of them as babies, lined up like pearls on a string. He whispered, "I kept my promise, Anna." Decades passed. The girls blossomed into teachers, nurses, artists, and mothers. They built their own lives, but they never drifted far from shore. Every holiday, they returned, filling his humble house with so much noise and laughter it seemed to swell. And each time, Richard would lean back, wiping his eyes, and marvel at the miracle of being foolish and brave enough to have made that choice. Now, 46 years later, in the year 2025, an elderly Richard sits in a large armchair, his face etched with a lifetime of love and worrying. Around him, 9 women, no longer girls, but radiant, confident women in elegant cream-colored dresses surround him. Their hands are on his, their bodies pressed close, their smiles blooming like flowers. Photographers' shutters click. The world watches. A headline flashes across news outlets. In 1979, he adopted 9 black girls. Look at them now. But for Richard, it wasn't about the headlines. It was about this moment, the circle finally complete. The babies no one wanted had become women the world admired. And he, the man everyone doubted, had lived long enough to see it all. Grace, one of his daughters, leaned in close and whispered, "Daddy, you did it. You kept us together." His lips trembled into a smile. "No," he whispered back, his voice weak but steady. "Love did. Love did." The room fell silent as all the daughters leaned in, pressing themselves against him. 9 strong women, clinging to the frail body of the man who chose them when no one else would. And for the first time in 46 years, Richard let himself cry, his tears of sorrow long gone, replaced by a profound and overwhelming feeling of grace. The promise had not only found somewhere to go, it had blossomed and flourished.